questions that come up during, write them down, keep them up here. All right, so let's make our first cocktail so that we can dive in right away. You're gonna see a little bit of toggling from me between the slide deck and my camera. So when we have these moments, that's what that is. All right, hopefully it'll be smooth and technology will stay with us. So right before we go into making our first cocktail, I just want to address two things right off the bat. Number one, yes, I'm available for private parties. Number two, if you would like to, and Morton Grove Library is very generously compensating me for my time tonight. So this is just so we get it out of the way, because we're all used to going to bars and being like, how does this work? If you would like to tip at all, that at Kelsey-Mathis is my Venmo. I am not expecting in any way, shape, or form any additional compensation for this evening. Like I said, Morton Grove Library is taking care of me. So I just wanted to throw that out there so nobody's feeling uncomfortable about that thought later. So let's get on with making a drink. So, oh, I made a slide for that. Look at that. Let's make a drink. Okay, we are gonna start tonight with our classic old fashioned. And there's gonna be a little trivia thrown in. So for the friend of ours that put in there that they like knowing about the history of the cocktails and things like that, I got you a little bit covered. We're not gonna go super deep, but there's a little bit of trivia, so get prepared.
Hey, Kelsey. Kelsey, yes. Sorry to interrupt. We can't see the slides. We just see at Kelsey.
You can't see the slides?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I am. You know what? You guys want to know why?
Why?
I didn't share my screen.
Okay, let's try that.
I'm used to doing these in person, so we'll just, there we go. Justin's off screen being like, you obviously didn't share your screen, and that's what happens. Oh, the other thing I should let you guys know is we have a zoo in our house. So if a cat runs by or a dog enters the screen, it's just how we live. Okay, so our classic old fashioned is going to be 2 ounces of bourbon, 0.25 ounces of simple syrup, 5 dashes of Angostura bitters, and we're gonna garnish that with an orange swath, okay? So I am going to show you guys how to make it. You can follow along with me. I'm gonna move the camera so you can see my hands and my setup. And then I'm gonna pull this recipe back up for you so you can see the recipe while you make it. So you can either go with me or wait until the recipe comes back up and do it that way. Okay, so this is my setup. This is not how my house normally looks. Normally there's a dish rack here, but this is how I've set us up for this evening. And I have kind of different stations set up for us. So before I get into all that, let's just make a drink. This is my stirring container. And I'm gonna pull the curtain back because although I'm a bartender, I don't do all these things unless I'm at my job. So we are using Bullet Bourbon as our old-fashioned bourbon of choice this evening. And this is something called a jigger. Now, if you don't have a jigger, it also might look like something like this. Your measuring tools. You can eyeball it if you want to. Most of us have during COVID. You can use something like this. This has cranberry juice in it right now, but really, however you want to measure your liquor, you can. This is a speed pour top. I use these at work. I don't use them at home. So if you don't have one, no worries. It just makes it a little easier to get the liquor out in a neat and tidy way. So it controls that speed. So I just took the 2-ounce side of my jigger, filled it with the bourbon, and put 2 ounces of bourbon in my stirring glass. Get my little notebook out of the way that I was taking notes from you guys on. And then this is my simple syrup. So yours is probably clear if you made yours at home. This I made with Demerara sugar. which just gives it that brown coloring flavor. There's different ways. Somebody was saying they made something cool. This is a mint simple syrup that we have over here. So we have lots of different ways to play with simple syrups, different sugars, just give it a little different color, a little bit of a different flavor. We're gonna put 0.25 ounces of that in our drink. You can eyeball it, or you can use this shorter side of your jigger. And there should be lines in here for you that delineate your 1/2 ounce and your 3/4 ounce. So if we're gonna use the jigger, we're only gonna fill it up about halfway to that 50% line. Oh, actually, it's a little more than halfway, because the way that this is, our volume increases as we get higher up, right? So you can't really see it in here without me tilting, but I put about 0.25 in there. If you like your drink a little sweeter, by all means, add a little more. If you like it a little drier, by all means, add a little less, right? This is about making a drink that you like and that fits your palate. And then traditionally, we would use Angostura bitters. A really fun way to mess with this cocktail is to just simply change your bitters. A lot of the time we are, simple syrup, Sean, is going to be 0.25, unless you prefer it a little sweeter. And that's gonna be, the more simple syrup, the sweeter it's gonna be. If you wanted a drier cocktail, you're gonna put a little bit less. So Angostura bitters would be our classic. But one way to change the flavor a little bit is to use different types of bitters. So here I have a spiced cherry, I have a sassafras and sorghum, and I have a Woodford Reserve's version of the Angostura. So depending on what bitters I choose, it's gonna taste a little bit different. I think in this case today, I'm feeling the spiced cherry. Pro tip, one that I really like to do is chocolate bitters with the spiced cherry. It's a good one. I like that a lot. Put about 3 dashes of it. For the sake of teaching you guys, just so you can see the color change, I want to show you, like, here's what it looks like, just the simple syrup and the liquor. When I put the Angostura in, it changes color, and you can see kind of that difference. So at our house, we don't, we're not fancy, but what I'm gonna do here is actually stir this drink with some ice in it, and that is going to dilute it enough for me to pour it into a glass over ice. So while I do that and get the ice out of the freezer for you, I'm gonna put those slides back up so you can follow along and get to this point. I'm gonna remember to share screens this time, you guys. We did it. All right, I'm gonna give everybody a moment to catch up. Oh, thank you, cameraman. But in this glass, in my stirring glass, and you may have seen fancier versions of this, my Amazon order did not come on time. In this stirring glass, I have my 2 ounces of bullet bourbon. I have 0.25 ounces of my simple syrup. And I have 3 shakes of my bitters, which classically, like we were saying, is going to be the Angostura. But you can use any different type of bitters to change the flavor. My 2 favorites, as a recap, are chocolate. Oh, I didn't share my other one with you guys yet. Chocolate and orange. They're great. So now what I'm going to do is take my spoon. If you do not have a bar spoon at home, a regular soup spoon will suffice. Or we use just a butter knife. So don't need to be fancy. Really what we want to do is take the ice that we've added and allow that to help dilute our drink. So stick the spoon in and stir. If you want to stir like a bartender, I just want to show you guys the back of this spoon always stays along the outside edge. And it's kind of like cute, right? Like you can make it look fancy. So is everybody caught up? I know we're all eager to have a bev. Everybody's good. I'm seeing thumbs up. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna take my rocks glass. Oh yeah, let's angle it here. Yeah, perfect. So I'm gonna take my rocks glass. I put a nice big ice cube in it. The reason for the larger ice cube is that it melts more slowly. So ice melt is gonna add water to your drink. And once we've already watered it down by stirring it, we don't want this ice cube to melt super fast because then you end up with a watery drink. So I'm gonna take my strainer, put it right on my stirring glass. It's nice and secure. You just want to kind of hold it on there because it might pop off once we tip it. I take my strainer and I'm just going to pour it over that ice. Oh, can you hand me a sharp knife? I forgot to get the peeler. And then my orange swath is going to be the garnish. So to do this, I recommend doing it with a vegetable peeler, but I forgot to locate mine in my kitchen, so I'm going to do it with a knife. So if you are going to do it that way, like just be super careful. So we're going to take our orange and just do a nice peel. Keeping our fingers out of the way, whether we're using a vegetable peeler or not. I went to the hospital once because I peeled my finger on accident. And we want to end up with a swath. So this is a swath. It's just the peel of the orange. And what we want is all of these beautiful oils in the peel to go into our drink to flavor it. So we take it from the outside. We want the outside of the rind facing the drink. And we want to give it a squeeze like this, right? And you should actually be able to see, as we squeeze it a couple times over the drink, the oils actually like come out of the peel. And actually, if you guys can see this now, I can see, like I have the oils on my fingers. I see them on the rind here. And then I'm going to take that same oil, I'm going to spin it around the rim of my beverage. So every sip I have has a little bit of an orange essence to it. And then I'm going to stick it right in the drink. And then, cheers. We get to taste it. I want to see your drinks, guys. Show me. Show me your drinks. Yeah. Oh yeah, beautiful. I love it. I have this iPad on like a music stand, so. Okay, Justin, will you come in and taste test this for me?
Hi guys, I'm Justin.
cameraman, my music man.
To crouch down.
I know.
It's delicious.
Awesome.
Very good.
So I'm gonna toggle us back while everybody's catching up, while we're finishing, to give us a few moments to enjoy this delicious beverage you just made for yourself. I'm going to go into our next slide. So throw this up in the chat for me. Yes or no? You feel really awesome about your cocktail knowledge. Like, feel free to tell me if that cocktail knowledge came from the last 9 months or if you've been feeling good about, oh my God, you guys didn't share my screen again. Today is not my technology day, but at least I noticed for myself this time, right? Start broadcast. Okay, there we go. Yes or no? You feel awesome about your cocktail knowledge. Tell me all about it. If I have any former bartenders in the house, let me know. Cocktails are a very interesting thing, and what we're going to get into tonight as we continue to dive into these drink recipes is a little bit of how the 3 recipes we picked tonight can be used in so many different ways. Oh, you didn't think you'd like them, Beth? Okay. More experimental. Yeah. Okay, great. Cool. Yeah, like, what's the worst thing that happens if you make a cocktail you don't like? Either you drink it, you throw it out, and you start over. There's really no wrong way. And just like with cooking or baking, cocktails can be messed with in order to change the flavor profile, but most cocktails are going to follow the proportions of the cocktails that we're studying tonight. So our old fashioned is an example of a 2-ounce cocktail. We're going to get a little more into that shortly. If you don't like it, you give it to your husband. Yes. Yep. Okay. Love that. I'm on board. So, you guys are amazing. Where was the sugar cube? Oh, thank you for asking that question. I'm not even going to try and pronounce your name because I feel like I'm going to butcher it. So thank you for asking, where was the sugar cube? So instead of using the sugar cube, which is classically how this cocktail was made, which I've got a fun quiz for you guys shortly for that, we used our simple syrup. So this is equal parts sugar and water. And what you do is you take, like, say, a cup of sugar, if that's going to be demerara sugar like I used, or white sugar. Doesn't matter what kind of sugar you're using. You could use cane sugar, sugar in the raw. That is a substitute for your sugar cube. Basically what we're doing is diluting it. So to make simple syrup, you're taking equal parts sugar and water, bringing it to a boil and letting it cook down until it creates that syrup. You can add flavors to this, like I've done with the mint one, that we'll be playing with a little bit later. You can keep it super simple, just sugar and water, and boil that down. But traditionally, they didn't have already liquid sugar. So in making the old fashioned, they would use a sugar cube and they would muddle it with a muddler. And that muddler would help break the sugar up into the drink. So yes, traditionally we would have put a sugar cube, but I prefer personally to not have to do so much more work because it requires more dilution of the drink and things like that. So we just keep simple syrup at home, and that becomes the other part of this. Ooh. To keep us somewhat on time, because we're slightly later than I anticipated being at this point, we'll just talk through some theory really quick. So our 2-ounce drinks are going to be our rocks drinks and our mixed drinks. So for example, let's take a margarita and compare it to our old-fashioned recipe. So a margarita is going to be 2 ounces of tequila, the same amount, 0.25 of simple syrup, maybe 0.5 if you want a little sweeter, and lime juice. That's a classic margarita recipe. And the only real difference is instead of adding bitters, I'm going to add lime to the drink. And that makes it a completely different flavor profile. A fun thing to do, something that we do at our house, is we'll make old fashions out of different types of liquor. So I might take vodka or rum and turn that into an old fashioned by picking a bitters that I like, things like that. So we can, oh, he's waving the drink at me. I know, we're ready for another one. But also mixed drinks follow this as well. Slightly differently, a mixed drink is going to be 2 ounces. At most bars, when I first started bartending, it was 1.5. Now it's 2 at most bars. Of your alcohol and then whatever your mixer is. So rum and Coke, a Jack and Coke, gin and tonic, all of that is going to be in that 2 ounces to fill the glass kind of category. Okay. So that's the theory, that's the boring stuff. Now I want to know, all or none. A classic old-fashioned includes all or none of the following. And I'm surprised I didn't get this question. Muddled cherries, a muddled orange slice, and whiskey. So take a moment. All or none? None? Ooh, Megan. All? Asha? Okay, I see you. All none, all none. Wow. Got a 50-50 chance of being right here, people. So are we ready? Have you chosen, if not on chat, at least in your minds? None! Fun fact, the first printed recipe of an old-fashioned was made with gin in the 1862 Jerry Thomas's Bartender's Guide for Mixing Drinks. So none of those ingredients were in the first one. Since I've moved to the Midwest, I have learned that this is a Wisconsin old-fashioned. I learned it under a different name when I was in New York. But a Wisconsin old-fashioned is going to take some muddled cherries, a muddled orange slice, the simple syrup, and that's going to really make it a lot sweeter. So by adding more sugary elements, you're going to make a sweeter drink. By leaving those out, you're going to make a drier drink. So depending on your flavor profile preferences, you do you. All right, so drum roll, please. Our next cocktail is the classic Manhattan. So this is our drink recipe. Again, I'm going to toggle back and show you guys how to make it. But we are going to be using most of the same, well, our same base that we just used, right? We just used our bullet bourbon. So we're going to use that again. We're going to need our sweet vermouth, our bitters, those are returning. And then we have some really yummy bourbon soaked cherries to work with as our garnish. So if you need any of those materials, gather them as I toggle back and stop screen sharing, and you can see what comes next. Stop broadcast. Okay. Oh, Luxardo cherries are a game changer, Alex. They are a game changer. If any of you have ever had a drink with maraschino cherry, you know the pain. It's painful. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, so my station's a little bit of a mess. If I was at work right now, this would have been cleaned up while I was talking to you, but I just didn't do that. So we're gonna clean up real quick. Get rid of this guy. This we're gonna save for later. We're gonna save this. I'm actually gonna rinse off my bar spoon. This, my mixing, I'm gonna rinse out really quick as well. Even though we're working with a lot of the same flavors, it's just nice, like, to have a clean workspace when you start any new project, whatever that is. So, for our Manhattan, we're gonna take our bullet bourbon. We're gonna take the 2 ounces. So if you're using this guy, you're gonna, you know, up to the first line. If you're using this guy, up to the top. And we're just gonna fill that in. I don't need that in. And then I'm gonna take my sweet vermouth. And we're gonna talk about different types of Manhattan in a moment. How do you feel about adding a little cherry juice? That's a great question, Alex. I will answer that momentarily. And do I prefer rye with a Manhattan? So Manhattans are traditionally made with a rye, but for me, and for the purposes of this presentation, not wanting to send you out to Binny's with like $100 potential bill, we're gonna keep it with the bourbon. Ryes are drier. So where a bourbon is aged to make them sweet, ryes are not. So your rye is gonna be a drier whiskey, and what actually balances that flavor out is gonna be your sweet vermouth. So again, it comes down to preference and budget. I didn't want to send you guys to Binny's with like so many different things to purchase for this class. So I kept it bourbon, but rye traditionally would be your Manhattan. Technically Rittenhouse rye specifically would be the classic Manhattan base. So I have the 2 ounces of my whiskey. If you've got rye at home, go for it. Or if you have Irish whiskey, that's another really dry whiskey. I would say that's even in my palate drier than an American rye. See what you like. I don't mind when it comes to classic cocktails, like something a little sweeter. So I'm gonna take my short side of my jigger, short side of my measuring, and I put 0.75. So I'm gonna go up to the second line that is right before you hit the top. So see, like before when we were doing 0.25, you couldn't see this in the camera. Now you can see like I went up to that second line here. That's gonna go right in. Then take my Angostura. I'm gonna do 3 dashes of this. If you like a little bit more of an herbal flavor, you can add more bitters. If you like something a little more gentle, you can keep it light. And just like we did last time, I'm gonna go add ice to this, and then we're gonna stir it. And this I will be serving up. However, a Manhattan can be served on the rocks or up, whatever your preference is. So I'm gonna go back to our recipe so you guys can see it while I get that all ready to go. And I will meet you back here in a moment. All right, how we doing? Do we have ice in our glass? Are we ready for some stirring action? Excellent. So add some ice to your glass because we're going to do the same thing we did last time. We never want to shake whiskey unless we're making a smash, which is like almost like a whiskey sour with a berry flavor. So we take our spoon or our knife, however, whatever, and we're gonna stir it again for a couple minutes or a couple seconds. Oh, my hand's covering it. I don't even know if I can do this with my left hand. Okay, there we go. There we go. The longer you stir it, obviously, the more ice melt you're going to get. So depending on how concentrated you want your drink, I did not stir this for very, very long because I let it sit here for a second with the ice in it while I gave you guys a moment to catch up. So now we have it nice and cold. You should be able to feel on the glass that it's cold. If the glass doesn't feel cold, it's not stirred enough. So once again, I'm going to take my trusty strainer. I'm going to latch it in there. And the only martini glass I have at my house, hilariously, is a commemorative item from a show that I stage managed like 10 million years ago. So, you know, whatever. And we pour it in. Again, I made this up for variety, but you do you. Make it however you want. If you want something to have a little more of, like if you prefer things on the rocks or on a big rock, I would just stir it a little less. With an up drink, you want to stir it a little more just so it stays cold and the dilution's already there. You're not depending on dilution from anything else. And so I have my Luxardo cherries. Traditionally, you would take a toothpick and 3 cherries on a toothpick into the drink. But like I mentioned to you guys earlier, my Amazon package did not come with a couple of things. So I'm going to do what they do in a last word instead and just take 1 cherry and toss it in the bottom. If you don't know the last word cocktail and you are a cocktail person, I highly recommend it. So see, like, because I didn't have the toothpicks, it still looks really nice and elegant in my martini glass. And I can take a sip. Should I take a sip on camera just so I don't mislead you that I don't like it? So cheers, you guys. Our second cocktail done and delivered. Cheers. I'm looking at Justin because he knows he wants it. And I'm going to hand it off. Because you shouldn't drink while you work, but it's okay today. Okay. All right. I'm going to toggle back to our slides. And Alex, I am going to answer your question about cherry juice while we do this. So cherry juice in a Manhattan, that goes under the experience of like personal preference. So, wrong button. So if your personal preference is to have a sweeter cocktail, by all means, add the cherry juice. I tend to like drier drinks, and between using a bourbon instead of a rye and using the sweet vermouth, that is enough sweetness for me, as well as having a cherry in the drink. So if you're somebody who, oh, well, Angela, thank you for being here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If, you know, you have any personal preferences, like this is the empowerment that I want to give you guys tonight. Like I said earlier, just like cooking, just like baking, cocktails have a malleability to them. There is no one right way. The right way is how you like to drink it. And that is all you have to worry about. So, ooh, true or false, a classic martini is the same recipe as our Manhattan with different ingredients.
True.
Ooh, Justin says true. Can I have another sip of that?
Another, the same ratio mixes with different ingredients.
Ooh, you guys, this is a juicy one. Okay, are we ready? I've got a lot of trues. True trues. Heyo. Sorry, y'all, it's false.
What?
Ah! This is a good one because a classic martini is going to be 3 ounces of vodka or gin with 0.5 of dry vermouth. And if you say you want your martini dry, that means less vermouth, but you want to end up at the end of your cocktail with 3 to 3.5 ounces of your alcohol. Yeah. So when we put this together, this Manhattan, right, we used 2 ounces of our main liquor and 0.75 of our vermouth, stirred it up. We ended up with 3 ounces of booze because 0.25 of that gap is the watermelon. Whereas in a martini, somebody's like, I want it dry, I want it, you always want to end up with a minimum of 3 ounces of booze. So you're going to take your vodka or gin and you're going to make it from there. And then our garnishes for that are a lemon swath, traditionally olives, and I've never understood this, cocktail onions. I get requests for it sometimes and I'm like, all right, dig those out of the deep freezer. Okay. All right, so moving on, it's 7:45. I was gonna talk to y'all about some different Manhattans. I'm gonna make that real quick, just so we can maintain our time here and respect everybody who's got, other things to be doing on a Friday night than drinking. I don't know. So twists on a Manhattan. You can take this recipe and do a lot with it. Just like with the old fashions, you could change your bitters. You could have it on the rocks or a big rock or have it up. Or you could even go so far as to make what's called a perfect Manhattan, where you're going to use the same base, so the 2 ounces of your bourbon or rye, and then instead of doing 0.75 of your sweet vermouth, you're going to split that. So roughly 0.33. It's hard to measure, but don't worry about it. As long as you like it, it's fine. Half of your vermouth is going to be sweet vermouth and half of your vermouth is going to be dry vermouth. So the interesting thing that happens when you try that is that you're still getting the sweetness from the whiskey, the bourbon, the rye, and the vermouth, but it's not as sweet as you might experience with that full-on sweet vermouth. So we'll keep it moving. Do you typically swirl and dump your vermouth in an up martini? That's a great question, Alex. So that is called a wash. When you take your martini glass, let me just toggle back really quick, you guys, and show you. Stop broadcast. Okay. There's my video. So here's my martini glass. Let's say I want a dry martini, or an extra. So if you go to a bar and you're saying, listen, I want an extra dry martini, that's going to have no vermouth in it at all. It's literally just going to be cold vodka or cold gin. That's it. If you say that's extra dry. If you say I want a dry martini, that is going to be a like about half of the vermouth that you would put in normally. So about 0.25. If you want to wash, and I don't have dry vermouth at home, so I'm just going to show you with the sweet vermouth, is I'm going to put just a tiny bit in. I'm going to swirl it around the glass. I'm going to try to coat the entire inside of the martini glass, and then I'm going to dump it out. And basically what that does is it gives you the aromatic of a vermouth, but there's no actual like vermouth in the drink. So it's kind of like right in between dry and extra dry. This is also a technique used in a Sazerac. So a Sazerac is an old-fashioned spin recipe, but you're doing a wash of absinthe. So I would take absinthe and I would do just what I did with the vermouth, dump it out. So what you're getting is a licorice smell as you take a sip of the drink, but you're not actually getting very much of a licorice taste, okay? So, okay, let's share some screens, or well, we're gonna move on to our next drink. So, this is I have a funny story for you guys for this cocktail that I'm excited to share. Woo, don't worry, I'm a professional. I almost dropped a bottle of bourbon. He got very nervous. Share screen. Not gonna forget that anymore. Start broadcast. As you guys saw a moment ago, we had a drum roll, please, situation happening. So I named this cocktail the Festivus. One of the things that Brenda and I talked about when we were putting this together was that we wanted to create a festive cocktail because it's the Christmas season. A lot of us are missing out on holiday parties. And so for this cocktail, I will be putting on my Jingle Bell Kitty ears because it's a Festivus. And we need to honor our time together. I don't know. It's just Jingle Bell Cat ears. Don't get too deep into it. So this is a spin on a cosmopolitan mixed with a French 75. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But first, let's just make the drink. So this is going to be a recipe. We're going to have 2 ounces of vodka or gin. We are going to have 0.25 ounces of simple syrup, 0.5 ounces of cranberry juice, splash of lime, top with ginger, and Prosecco. So this is the most complicated cocktail of the evening. And I saved it for the end because it's the most complicated cocktail of the evening in what it looks like, but it's really not that bad. So just stick with me. I'm going to show you how to make it, and then we will talk about the theory. Okay. Here I have my station, still not clean. I yell at bartenders about this at my job all the time. I'm like, why isn't it clean? And then I just don't do that for myself, apparently. So I'm gonna get this all out of the way because I don't need it anymore. I don't even need my stirring glass. This is where we're gonna use our shaker. If you have a shaker, awesome. But hey, if you don't worry, because the drink's not gonna lose anything by not shaking it. So this is gonna be modeled after your French 75 or your Cosmopolitan. So I just wanted to show you guys a shaken drink. The fun story here is that I came up with this recipe when I was coming up with the supplies list, and I was just crossing my fingers that it would work, and we tried it earlier as a stirred cocktail, and it was awesome. So don't think too much about it if you don't have one of these guys. So we're gonna take our shaker. We're gonna take our jigger. We're gonna take our 2 ounce side, our big side, our vodka or gin. This is a really good gin cocktail as well. But again, I didn't want to send you guys out there with a $100 Benny's run. So whatever you have, however you want to play. It's all about play. It's all about fun. It's all about just experimenting. So we're gonna, the two ingredients in this cocktail that we are not putting in the shaker are our carbonated materials. The reason we're not putting anything carbonated into our shaker is because if I were to do that, put the top on and start shaking, it's gonna create a situation where the shaker is gonna blow up on you. Like the pressure of the carbonation builds up inside as you shake, and then you end up cocktails everywhere and not in your mouth. So that's like the biggest travesty that could ever happen, right? So, so grab that simple syrup. We've got our vodka, 2 ounces in here. For this one, just because I had it in my fridge, I'm using my mint simple syrup. So this is going to be equal parts white sugar and water with like a ton of fresh mint. Like I can smell it from here. But earlier I made it with my other simple syrup and it tasted amazing. So don't worry, you're not missing out on anything. So I'm going to put 0.25 into the shaker. And then my cranberry juice. And guys, I tried to make everything look really nice for you. So I like pulled it out of the big jug. I would never do that if we weren't doing this live as a teaching expedition. So I'm gonna put 0.5 in here. So I'm filling it up to that first line in my jigger in my little side. Put that right in. And then I'm going to take my lime juice as well. I don't know why I like this key lime juice so much. Lime juice, key lime juice, whatever feels good, it doesn't matter. But I personally like this one a lot. If you want to measure it, it's going to be about 0.25. I usually just give it like a squirt. And then I'm going to put ice in this and shake it. So while I grab the ice, I'm going to put that recipe back up for you. And then we will reconvene momentarily. All right, how are we doing? Are we in the shaker? Are we ready to shake? This is the best part, the shaking. So, some shakers have this little guy on top that allows you to just take this off and strain it without having to use a separate strainer. Some of them, most of the time professionally, what I'm using is like a big shaker and a little shaker that you have to remove the top in order to strain. So whatever you have, don't worry, it works. How much ice is too much ice for inside the shaker? That's a great question. You can pack the whole thing. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you have, I put probably a handful of ice in just because probably I should have bought a bag of ice for this situation and I didn't. Yeah, just as long as you have, if your liquor comes to here, as long as you've got at least kind of double that in ice, you're going to be totally fine. So make sure when you're shaking, this is a big one, that you have a hand on anything, part of your hand on anything that can come off. So if you have a shaker, a big shaker, a little shaker, you want to have your hand on both of those pieces. If in my case, you've got 3 pieces, you want to have a piece of your hand on everything. Because again, the last thing we want to do is cocktail on the wall. So just shake it, have fun. You can go up, you can go down, you can go across, whatever feels good. It's about 30 seconds. I usually count to about 20. I'm gonna serve this in a wine glass because I don't have a coupe. A coupe is the type of champagne flute that Marie Antoinette created. That is kind of that flat looking. So because of the way this recipe was modeled, I would normally serve it in a coupe, but I don't have one at home, so who cares? Because I already have this little strainer guy on here, I can just pour straight from the thing. If you don't have that, you want to remove the top. Obviously, put your strainer on and pour it into your glass. So I'm going to reposition this camera and we're going to talk about the floats. So I have my ginger beer or ginger ale, whatever your preference is. And I have my Prosecco sparkling champagne. As we sip on these drinks and wrap things up, I'm going to talk about the theory of all of these decisions, but let's just get to the drinking part. So I'm just going to put a little splash of ginger ale or ginger beer in there. And then with my little split, I'm going to do about the same amount. Just a little splash. I didn't have a garnish for this because there's so many flavors happening for myself. Candied ginger would be a really good one. Again, that Amazon cart did not come in time. So we're just gonna enjoy this little pink drink as is. Because we already have like our citrus flavor from this, and we have the cranberry, we have the ginger. There's just a lot of flavors happening. So it doesn't really need a garnish. It's more just for looks. So to toggle back, thank you all for joining. It's 8 o'clock. This is going to go a little bit longer if you want to stay. Cheers to you. Ooh, I love those champagne flutes. Cheers. If you have to hop off, my email, the candied ginger, I would put that on a pick and then put it on the side of the glass, or you can slice the ginger if it's a big enough piece and actually just insert it like you might. Oh yeah, there you go. Yes, Rich and Anna, yes. Oh my God, it's Rich and Anna. I didn't know you guys were here. Oh my God, that's amazing. I should have recognized your kitchen. But yeah, you can slice the candied ginger and just put it on the side. Oh, I'm so glad you like it. I'm so glad this worked out. I was really afraid I sent you guys a lot of ingredients that we wouldn't like. So I have a couple slides left. If you have to run, my email is the first chat in the chat box. Feel free to email me. But I'm going to toggle us back to the slides so we can talk a little bit of theory as to like how this drink was created and how you can take what you learned tonight and really empower yourself to put together drinks of your own. Meow. Thank you. Okay, so like I said, this drink was modeled a little bit after a French 75 and a little bit off of a Cosmopolitan. So I'm going to break down those two recipes for you so you can see what the build becomes, right? So a French 75 is going to be 2 ounces of gin, lime juice, and then topped with Prosecco. It is a delicious drink. If you've never had it, I highly recommend it. So in this cocktail, what we did here was we took 2 ounces of gin or vodka. Oh, my cat has decided finally to join us. And my dog. You guys, I told you it's a zoo over here. So we took 2 ounces of our vodka or gin as our base. We took lime juice. And because I wanted a more festive flavor, I added the cranberry. But in order to get a good proportion on that, those two very kind of harsh flavors, I lessened the lime juice in order to accommodate the same with the cranberry, the same proportion with cranberry. And then in the French 75, once you shake your gin and lime, you're going to add Prosecco on top once you've strained it into your glass. So that Prosecco was again used as our splash at the top, but because I wanted to make this a little more festive and have a little bit more of a depth of flavor, I used the ginger and kind of split down the middle between those two as well. So so that's how it became from a French 75 recipe into what you're drinking right now. Let's do it the other way around. A Cosmopolitan is going to be 2 ounces of vodka, about a half an ounce of cranberries, and we're going to have a splash of lime in there. What we did instead of using the curacao, which would be our orange liqueur, is we got our sweetness from other places. So all of these cocktails really do come from very similar recipes. It's just what is the flavor profile that I'm looking to create. And maybe I have to like mess with my proportions a little bit, but I can pretty much figure out from a back end like recipe standpoint how that might work. And if you're a baker or a cook, I'm sure you've done this with those modalities as well. And as we were talking about earlier, like I could make a cranberry margarita with, we were talking about our 2 ounce cocktails, remember? Our 2 ounces of tequila, our bit of lime juice, our simple syrup. You could add cranberry juice or ginger to that or both and have a very similar cocktail to what you're drinking now, but where the depth of flavor is going to come from is the tequila, just like you might have switched out the vodka here for gin. A mojito, 2 ounces of rum with muddled lime and mint. So like I said, I use mint syrup here. Mint simple syrup, so I got a bit of mint flavoring in this version of this cocktail, but that's still going to be your 2 ounce base liquor with a little bit of sweetener, and you can make a cranberry ginger mojito just by switching out this recipe with rum and putting it on the rocks. And then I got Negroni earlier, so your Negroni is going to be 3 equal proportions. And that's where the last word, which I also mentioned earlier, comes from. So a Negroni is going to be 0.75 ounces of gin, sweet vermouth, and sorry, my dog's being distracting. Gin, sweet vermouth, and I've made this drink a bazillion times. Why am I blanking? Gin, sweet vermouth. Somebody help me in the chat. Gin, sweet vermouth, and oh wow. Can you guys tell I haven't bartended in forever? Yes, Campari. Thank you. Yes, Campari, which is a traditional Irish, Italian aperitif, which is very bitter. And that drink can be very easily turned into a last word, which is equal parts gin, lime juice, chartreuse, which is, if you haven't had chartreuse, amazing. So you kind of end up being able to, once you master all of these basic cocktails, these classic cocktails, being able to put spins on them. So I hope this was informative. I have really enjoyed being here with you guys. Again, my email and my Instagram, like feel free to ask any questions. I'm going to toggle back to my face, my video. And oh yes, that's the other thing, you guys. So once upon a time, I was going to tell you about more stuff, but we ran out of time. And the Dearborn is where I got hooked up with the Morton Grove Library, and they are seriously, for being in the industry since I was 15 years old, so over half of my life, they are the best owners that I've ever worked for, the best management that I've ever worked for, and I really hope to see you there when we reopen, whenever that may be. So any questions? Throw them out. I'll hang for a few more minutes. But this is the end of our official programming, but I'm happy to answer questions and hang out, and Justin drank all my drinks though. Do you always use lime? Some recipes call for lime, some call for lemon. Again, personal preference. That's Tony. There's nothing I can do about him. Thank you, Constance. It was lovely to have you here. Oh, Tony. Just gonna drink my water instead. Is there any way around all the ingredients, or do you really think a lot of different alcohols is necessary? That is an excellent question. So honestly, what we keep at our house is a bottle of bourbon, a bottle of sweet vermouth, and a bottle of vodka. Because there's so many different things you can do with that. Like I'll use, if I'm drinking vodka, I'll use kombucha as a mixer. I'll use, we have tequila right now, but we don't always. I'll use kombucha as a mixer. I'll use ginger beer. I'll use just vodka sodas. Like, no, you don't need to have a full bar to have a good time at your house. Just pick 2-3 bottles of things that you like, or like, if we go outside of our staples, I might get a bottle of Aperol and make myself some Aperol spritz. I might, just depends on what I'm feeling, or like you can cycle through. You don't always have to have the same thing, but maybe like if this, then what? If this time I bought vodka, next time I buy gin. If last time I bought bourbon, this time I'll buy rye. I don't bartend like this at home because it just feels like unnecessary. This setup, like I said at the very beginning, this is where our dish rack usually lives. So it's a lot more basic. House bourbon, 25 to 40 bucks. Our go-to is Bullet. I also really like Buffalo Trace. On special occasions, we go $10 more and get a Woodford Reserve. Feel free to throw it up in the chat for me. Like, what was your favorite drink that we made tonight? Oh, favorite drink with rosemary, Caitlin. Let me see if I can remember the recipe. So at the Dearborn over the summer or last spring, we had a drink that my fellow bartender Ryan made, and the garnish was a sprig of rosemary on, like we had these little clothespins. It went right on the glass. I think it was it was a spin on a smash. So that would be shaken 2 ounces bourbon with lemon or lime and simple syrup. But he had a spin on it, and I don't remember what that was. But if you email me, I will find out and I'll send it back over to you. And the rosemary sprig really made it. Oh, I'm glad you like the Festivus. I named that today. Oh, Venmo wants to know the last 4 digits. Thank you. 1263. I'm gonna throw that in the chat. Also, I have been on my phone just to monitor the chat, you guys. So I hope you pardon my looking off screen to do that. Cool. Any other questions, you guys? Questions, thoughts, shares? We can unmute if you want. Thank you all so much for being here. Support the local libraries, support small businesses this season. That's my my PSA, I guess.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone for coming. This was so fun. I'm so glad we were able to do it. Thank you so much to Kelsey. It was awesome. I learned a lot, and I'm really going to love this Festivus and the next one I have in a few minutes. You know, if you're not a Morton Grove Library patron, obviously you don't have to be to do our programs. We have tons of Zoom stuff. We have chair yoga, we have Tai Chi, we have escape rooms for teens. We have all kinds of fun stuff. Hi, Tony. We have all kinds of fun stuff. You don't need a library card to do any of it. And we would love to have you. I think that's it that I have. Yeah. Yeah, and who knows, you know, we might definitely do something like this again. So obviously keep your eyes peeled for that. And yes, Kelsey does private events all the time. So hire her for that because she's great. And Megan is one of my friends, so hopefully I will see you again at one of her events.
Well, thank you guys. I hope you learned something. Like I said, please reach out to me. But at the end of the day, it's all about, you know, finding what you like. And the worst thing that happens is if you don't like the drink you made, you give it to your husband. That's what I learned this evening. So
I'll drink it.
my iPad clip is slowly just dying here. So
And we will send out the slides so you'll have the recipes for all of the cocktails that we made tonight. I think that's it. So unless anybody else has anything, we'll go make a fourth cocktail.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. Good night, everybody.
good
Thanks
night.
for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Katie.